I haven't had the chance to do one of these in a little over 2 weeks. I had my second strike, medical misinformation. So we're always gonna have to be on our tippy toes, and this is gonna be probably more, the norm as we continue down this path. A lot of people are hoping that some sort of a politician is gonna step up and save the people. You might look at, for example, like a Ron DeSantis, and they're like, oh, Florida, Florida doing it right. But if you've paid attention to what's been going on in many other countries, you're seeing more and more countries using the military to push back against the people. And just recently in in Iraq and from the Middle East, the US pulled their troops back. And in a previous video, I had said that the reason that they pulled back their troops is for you, right? The real threat is going to be on the homeland. There are going to be pockets of resistance. There are going to be pockets of people who are maybe they're going to protest. Maybe they're going to say something. I mean, right now, most Americans, and I've said this, most Americans are socialists at this point. And when it comes to things like communism gets you to vote it in, right? And this has been going on for decades. This is by no means new. What we're watching is just the fruition of decade after decade after decade of talking Americans and Americans themselves voting for socialist sort of style programs, like for example, Medicaid, Medicare, retirement, Social Security. You've seen free rent, cancel rent, free education. We need free education. And then when they give you free education, they're like, you need to cancel student loan debt, etc. And so they constantly push Americans and Americans themselves who cannot compete, right? Individuals who cannot compete, they don't like the outcomes, right? They're like, well, we all need equal outcomes. When they refer to equality. And so, and just the reality is that some people just cannot compete by comparison to others. In any sort of capitalistic society, there are always going to be those who consume, and there are going to be those who produce. And if you're a producer, you will more than likely have more than someone who constantly cannot control their consumption, right? You see individuals, especially in America. America is a very overweight nation. Many people cannot control their consumption, even of something as simple as food. Forget about the desire for clothing, fancy bags, and of course we get bombarded by these things via advertisement daily, which is why you saw a separation between male and female relationships, because males typically curb their spending and typically limit their spending towards their family. With that, because women are now left alone, their spending goes unchecked, and businesses and societies and governments understand this. And so you see the caption here says, why you'll be wearing coverings for the foreseeable future. And the reason being is, what's happening is not just going to happen overnight. You're not going to see one style of government just shift overnight. This is going to be a long, enduring process. And the reality is, it doesn't matter how much you fight back. It's because there's just way too many communists in the country. There are way too many communist politicians. If you remember, there's nobody on the right that is going to save you. If you remember the whole January 6th, right? And when that happened, most of the politicians that you thought were on the right basically couldn't help stop falling over themselves to condemn what had happened. And the reason being is because they want they want to be included and accepted by the left. Because when you look at history, the left always kills the right. Always. Whenever you look at the previous style governments that went that route, that went socialism into communism, they kill the right, and then eventually they kill themselves, which is why, as a perfect example, they always say, what, lefties, they eat themselves, right? That's why they turn on each other. That's why you see, Biden now turning on Facebook and being like, you're responsible for, meanwhile, they were the ones that said that they're working, right, hand in glove. And then all of a sudden they turned on them and they were like, "Oh, you're responsible." Facebook's like, "Look, what are we talking about? You're the one that tell me to do all this shit." And this is what they do. Eventually, what happens is they eventually eat themselves. And so this is going to go on for quite some time. This whole narrative is going to go on for quite some time. It is not going to go away, and there is nobody that is going to be there to come on a white horse and save you. It's just not going to happen. Many people are hoping for that, and that's what you saw when you saw what the previous, Orange Man bad, and many people had hope. And now people are looking, to the Ron DeSantis of the world, and it's just because that's just the way humans are. Humans require leadership. It's very much like the Bible says that to man who is walking, it does not belong to man who is walking, even to direct his step. Indicating from, the wisdom of old is even the small day-to-day decisions require direction. That many people fail in their ability to even take a step in a particular direction that often leads many into disaster and failure because many people require direction. So people look constantly for leadership. There isn't going to be any leadership moving forward that is going to be there to save you. Eventually, the left will just utilize and weaponize the US military against the right. You might think, well, yeah, there might be pockets and people are going to flee to these areas. I mean, they could overturn those areas in terms of voting. You've already seen that. And then you hear, oh, they're allowing all these illegals to come into the country, and which way do you think they're going to vote? All right, so they can just flood these in. Oh, maybe another little cough, a new cough comes out, and the people who reside in your city, it's not like these cities like Florida and Texas are all completely 100% on the right. No, they're literally on the fringes of flipping. And so if that doesn't work, they will go the route of the military. I guarantee. Look at Australia. Look at Australia. Australia. I mean, they don't even have any deaths. I think they had like one person or like a handful of people out of this whole thing that died from it. Supposedly, this is what these openly acknowledges, and yet they're there with the military, push back against those who are pushing against the lockdowns, even to the point of saying that if you show up to a protest, that they're going to fine you like $11,000. They're doing the same thing in Germany. They're doing the same thing in France. They're pushing out the military against these individuals. That will be the norm. And because the average person is not as coordinated and organized as the government, many of these individuals will get rounded up. They'll be made examples of. If you understand history and you understand communism, then you know the direction that we're going. Eventually, you'll see the seizure of homes. Whether they extend the moratoriums or not is not relevant. If you understand communism, it's just a matter of seizing the means of production, you'll understand how that works. Whether they choose to continue to extend. I was watching a video the other day when I was on my break at the hospital, and it was a news article, video article, talking about how a lot of people who own homes are just waiting for the moratoriums to be lifted so that they can kick that person out and then sell their home, sell their rental property. So you push the people into enough pain, and these individuals will sell their properties, and more than likely they'll be bought up by some sort of hedge fund that is co-managed by the Federal Reserve or BlackRock, etc. And it's just basically acting as an extension of the government so that they can offer affordable housing. You'll see the same thing with businesses. As supplies become shorter, what will happen? The people will beg the government for price controls. And this is what you see already with housing, right? Which is what you see with affordable housing, with rent-controlled housing. Rent control is a form of price control. You saw it already with the gas shortage, when they say, oh, and the people talking about, oh, they're trying to raise, the price of gas because there's a shortage. What do they refer to it as? They refer to it as price gouging. But in capitalism, in a capitalistic economy, That's how you stop people from hoarding. Exactly what you saw with the toilet paper fiasco. You have people out there buying up toilet paper left and right. And then you show up to the supermarket, you're like, where the hell's all the toilet paper, right? It's because they can't price gouge. Now, price gouging, or allowing the market to correct itself, so when there's too much demand and there's not enough supply, what happens? Prices rise. And so people will think twice about buying, 50 things of toilet paper. But since they can't raise prices and it stays $1, it stays at $2 or $3, people won't mind going out there and buying 20 things of toilet paper or whatever product it is because they don't allow for the market to correct itself. And so it feels good to tell people, oh, don't worry, we're going to get those price gougers. It feels good, but the reality is the policy is destructive. And you'll see that moving forward, because this is the route that communism always goes. They always go the route of not enough people producing, not enough supply. And so what happens is the people ask for price controls because people want to raise the prices because there's too much demand and too little supply. Naturally, in capitalism, you raise prices. It's going to be bad for quite some time. And the only thing that you have to ask is, what are you personally planning for yourself? What are your personal plans? No one is coming to save you. There isn't a politician that's going to come in and save you and is going to push back. And the one who could have done it should have done it last year. That person talked the talk, but they were not willing to walk the walk. They gave numerous. If you watched Orange Man when he made a video, he made a speech in front of the UN. I think it was back in 2018 or 19, and he firmly stated that America will not go the route of globalism. That is exactly what you're watching right now. You're watching the American government go towards globalism, which is just communism. The entire West and many other countries are falling back to communism. That was the route that we were going back during the World War I, World War II era. Communism was encroaching on the entire globe, and America and a couple of other nations pushed back against communism. But we are literally picking up where our ancestors not too long ago left off. The difference is that the American people have vastly changed who they were back then in the early 1900s to who they are today. Most Americans are socialists. You can just look at the programs. You can just look at the programs that they vote for. And if you talk about, we need to slash Medicaid, we need to slash Medicare, we need to cut spending, then another politician comes out and says, this guy's trying to rob you of what you're due. Who do you think they vote for? They vote in favor of what the government is going to give them. And this is what socialism is. This is what socialism is. And there was that, I forgot which president talked about it. I think it was Reagan, who said that once the people understand their ability to vote for more money, that would be the route that they were going to go. And that's exactly what we're seeing. Anyway, it's time to get ready for work. I got one more night at the hospital and then I'm off, but I'm going to put out some more articles. We're going to be shifting a little bit of the topics moving forward, so I don't get my third and final strike. But it kind of is what it is. I'm in preparation mode. I'm out there working 6 days a week now. We're doing 6 days now at the hospital. And it's all for the purpose of being prepared for what's coming.